Iran has issued a warning to Israel and the United States, stating that it will respond immediately and decisively if they attack the country's nuclear sites. The Iranian foreign minister described such an action against his country as crazy, while President Trump maintains that Iran should not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. He seems to prefer pursuing a negotiated settlement. Dr. Majid Sadeghpour, political director of the Organization of Iranian American Communities, joins us with more. Dr. Sadeghpour, how do you and many Iranian Americans think President Trump should respond to Iran's warning?
From our perspective, obviously what we see in the streets of Iran is that the regime has a problem. The Iranian people want to overthrow this regime and are engaging this regime in really day-to-day combat. In a way, that is seen in the number of executions in Iran, really exceeding over 1,000 last year. So that tells us that the people of Iran, and hence our community, wants the Iranian people to have the opportunity to overthrow this regime. Relative to what the U.S. policy towards Iran has been and what we want it to look like, is that so far the U.S. policy has been to help change the regime's behavior. What we contend, our community contends, and really mirrors what happens in the streets of Iran, is that the people of Iran long ago gave up on this regime. This regime has to be overthrown. But to do that, we need President Trump, we need the United States to side with the aspirations and the wishes of the people of Iran. And I might add also how the United States Congress has, through multiple resolutions, the latest H.Res. 1148, is to support the people of Iran and their organized resistance politically and morally so that they can overthrow this regime and address this perpetual threat that we see in the global arena.
Well, President Trump has criticized the Biden administration for allowing billions of dollars to flow into Iran. Much of that money was used to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, other proxies, to spread terror to Israel and elsewhere in the Middle East. So we don't see that their behavior was altered positively. So should there be a return to harsh economic sanctions? And wouldn't that only hurt the Iranian people?
Right. And a lot of that fund, a lot of the funds that they received over the past 4 years was not only used to prop up the proxies they had throughout the Middle East, but also really a significant portion of it was spent on persecuting and executing the Iranian people. It is only that through those executions and tortures and killings is that this regime is surviving. So we support, as the people of Iran certainly do, the return to maximum pressure policy. But that maximum pressure will not yield results. Remember the goal of the people of Iran, and we believe the goal of American policy should be to help the Iranian people achieve a democratic regime change. And to that end, that maximum pressure policy has to be supplemented with political support for the organized Iranian opposition. And certainly we believe, our community believe, the most viable, most longest acting, longest serving Iranian opposition group in existence is the National Council of Resistance of Iran.
Well, and the people are suffering beyond the arrests and the killings. Inflation is at about 50% in Iran. The unemployment rate is high, especially for young people, hovering at 20%. It seems the country's leaders and people would be more than anxious to strike a deal with Trump. So your thoughts on that, striking a deal? Well,
I am sure that they are, and they have been in front of the cameras here in the United States and in Europe, suggesting that they want to make a deal with the regime in Iran. But making a deal with this regime, this illegitimate regime, I might add, is making a deal with the devil. They may prolong the negotiations for as long as they can so that they can prolong their regime. But no deal with this regime is worth the paper it is written on. This regime is predatory in nature, is misogynist, is fascist, and to the core fundamentalist, Islamist fundamentalist. And the only solution really is to change this regime.
What effect, Majid, would an airstrike have against nuclear sites there? Would that embolden the regime and help the regime, or would it weaken it? Because I know Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to send advanced weaponry, including air defenses, to Iran, and recent Israeli airstrikes weakened Syrian and Iranian air defenses. So Wouldn't this be the most opportune time for Israel to strike Iranian nuclear sites before new defensive systems are put in place? What effect would that have?
Right. Well, the core assumption here is that this regime, with this sort of attack, will be weakened and hence will come to the table and will make a better deal. The assumption is that we are able to weaken this regime or delay the nuclear weapons program of this regime. Remember, most of this regime's nuclear plans and research facilities and ballistic missile activities are underground and are not submitted to the international community. So to answer your question directly, this regime will not come to the table in good faith. Its survival depends on developing nuclear weapons. It has lost a lot of its strategic depth by losses it suffered in Lebanon and beyond in Gaza. And so it is increasingly relying in prolonging negotiating or asking for negotiations abroad, and certainly by killing and increasing the killings of the people of Iran. To the contrary, I think this regime is really weak inside Iran. And it is that the international community should put their finger on. This regime will not fall or submit to the international community by bombs from the sky. And certainly, those bombs from the sky will not address Iran's nuclear weapons program or its terrorism infrastructure.
Okay, regime change is the word. Majid Sadeghpour of the Organization of Iranian American Communities, thank you for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.